This is going to be a introduction video regarding this channel and who I am, Alex Langhans, and it's going to be a collection of a lot of different things. Either riding in the car with me, sharing some of my thoughts, and it's usually going to be either around a business idea or books I'm listening to, and then how those books might relate to other concepts or how they connect. And how I view my evolving role with what I do. And so, about me, I am a Subway franchisee since 2016, but I started with Subway in 1998 as a sandwich artist. Technically, my parents started in 1994. I've basically been in Subway since 1994 in a theoretical sense. So, been in it for 30 years, been around Subway for 30 years, and I'm 40. So, a very substantial part of my life is Subway. And so, a lot of things I talk about are Subway related because that's been my life. Haven't really changed much up since 94. So the thing I really want to say, the me, who am I, is a couple things. So having worked in Subway this many years, I have worked in top of my head, I think around 35 plus Subways. My family, we own 19 stores between the two of us. But I worked for another franchisee in my late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, both in the Hershey Park Subways and in State College. And those experiences were really enlightening, just for getting out of the rural area I was in. I was driving an hour to Hershey Park. At that time, my parents had owned 2 stores, and while they were steady, busy-ish kind of stores, they weren't Hershey Park busy. And those stores, that first day, I remember very clearly, rolling in and getting started. We would do 150 subs an hour for the first 3 hours of lunch, which from like 11 to 2, it was 150 subs, 150 6-inches. That's per sandwich unit, and there were 2 sandwich units in the location I was working at. So it was just humming. And I was like, 2000 to 2002, 2003 that I worked there. Maybe it was 2002 to 2004. I don't know. Anyways, but it was very high speed environment. There's just a lot going on. And I had come down there at request of our business consultant at the time, and he was the manager of that Hershey Park location. He was also a business consultant for the Subways in the area, for the BD of that territory, the Fair Hotties. And he asked me to come down, and I was like, all right. My parents were like, hey, you get 40 hours of work there. Um, and so I would drive an hour. I would typically work like a 10-hour shift, 4 days a week. Um, I felt like such a high roller at the time. I was making like $9 an hour or something like that. I was like, I would get premium gas, which was, I remember very distinctly being $1.35 for premium. So it was different times. But so I worked there. It was just busy, And I came in as like an assistant, and there was like 12 assistants at this location. Um, it was just so busy, and everybody was from the Hershey, Hummelstown area, and I was like the transplant who would come in and just was like this weirdo who came in from an hour away to work there. So, but it was really like a lot of learning experiences there about how to work quickly, and a lot of times you working in a job in one place, you get into a rhythm and you think this is the only way it could possibly be, because your context for work is that one location. And I would work between two locations. My parents, and they were pretty similar, so it didn't really, nothing really ever like challenged me. And so when I worked at Hershey Park, it was like a challenge. It was a wow. This is way different, And so my learning capacity evolved, and my work capacity evolved, where I learned about just finding another gear, like about you find ways to move a little quicker, a little pep in your step. Instead of just like walking from point A to point B, you just walk a little faster. You have a little hustle in your step. And I don't know if it's like a ADD thing. Never been diagnosed. It's in my family, ADHD type stuff, but like movement, people who have like ADHD, like they typically move in a straight line, and they just move their body around objects versus like having to like veer around those objects. And so just like moving, and how I moved and how I felt in a space is very like, side by side people, close, and like instead of like turning and walking, I would like just do a grapevine with my feet, just hard to explain unless you know what a grapevine movement is. It's like a karaoke in football. You're just kind of crisscrossing your feet and moving laterally versus like turning your whole body and moving. And just like that's how you learn to just like minimize movement patterns so that you can move quicker with your movement. So that was interesting. And then they opened another Subway down there in the park. So I was there for the second one. They eventually built a third one as well. And having to work between those two locations and seeing the differences and dealing with different people and all that, it was like a speed exposure to management and working. And then I went up to State College, and my plan was not to work at Subway. I did not work for a whole semester. I just was like, I'm just going to coast on my savings, and I blew through all my savings. And so then I was like, okay, I need to get a job. So I applied to different places. I would go around after one of my classes at Penn State, and nothing really clicked. It was just restaurants I was just interested in, and they would be like minimum wage, $5.15. Here you go. It's or that was basically it. There wasn't really much good options. And there was a subway near where I had classes. I could walk down to it on Burroughs, and there was a Starbucks across the street. So I applied to Starbucks, hoping to get a job there, because I wanted to learn about Starbucks. But I also applied at Subway, and I kind of do wonder about my life in many ways. Like, if I had taken a job at Starbucks, I probably would still be with Starbucks, just because how I mentally operate. I know I could make that job work, but I didn't. I got a job at Subway, and so I worked for my manager Greg there, and I started a fruitful career of working at Subway and basically all the Subways in that area, which are also owned by the Farhadis. That's where they had started from in State College, and then they went to Hershey Park. Looks like a police car behind me. We're doing a driving talk today. Driving with Alex. And driving, gonna turn. No, it's a red car. Never mind. Anyways. And so State College was also an interesting place to work. Different than Hershey Park, but also I felt I was set up really well. Having worked in Hershey Park, from the State College, Penn State football was a big deal. And so like 2005 through 2007 seasons when I was there, they were good as a team. And so downtown was busy after games. It was a scene for sure. And so I had many great nights of just like working and being crazy busy and just getting after it, And I took a very like professional mindset to it. I was wearing my uniform correctly. I always wanted to wear like the khakis and the belt and the apron and tuck it in and just be presentable. I always took pride in that. And I just took pride in what I did as my profession, which was just the sandwich artist. I wasn't doing anything special, but so I was a student, so I was working typically 35 to 40 hours a week in college. Usually like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I get at least 30 hours. I would work like from like 3 or 4 till 2 or 3 in the morning when we closed, and maybe like another hour after that, most nights. And then our football nights were always like 2 hours after the fact. It was a whole another animal, and I liked that a lot. I liked working at State College. I was known as the subway guy around campus, because I worked at all the subways around campus and off campus and just all over the place. So people could go in anywhere and they might run into me, because I would cover shifts wherever. I was that go-to person, willing to go wherever, do whatever, which was very formative in my life, about how I grown in business. And in about 2007 or so, my parents were rebuilding their third subway inside of Walmart. And so I was like, you know what? I haven't finished college yet, but I'm gonna come back to the family business and get into the family business of subways. We have 3 subways, and I thought that was big. I thought it was a big deal getting 3 subways, and it is to go from 1 to 3, there's a lot of things that happen that, unless you've done it before, you just don't know. And so you learn hard those first 3 stores. So there I was in the third. So I came back and I was working in our Halifax store until the Walmart location opened. And then I was doing the Evo Walmart location for a while. And I believe my brother had come back from college, or he had stopped going to college as well. And he ended up working at the Evo location. I think eventually the Evo Walmart location. And I went back to Halifax to oversee operations there as a manager. And I really working for your parents is not easy. And what kind of teaching you get as the kid, as the boys, as my parents have called us over the years, probably to this day, is that you don't get the same teaching. It's like you get you should know this stuff, you've been around for so long, but you never really have been taught these things. And so becoming a store manager, really was like a fight, really, to get that control, get that power of how to schedule a store, how to run a store. And it was a challenge to get to that point, to get the trust from my mom, who was overseeing the company at that time. My dad had taken a job in 97, 98 to help support the business. He was working for Consolidated Nutrition, which eventually became something else, which became ADM in the future. Was acquired by ADM. I'll touch back on that. And so it was an interesting time. Yeah, and so Subway business was not doing great in the late 90s. And my parents thought about selling the 2 stores. And my dad was like, no, we got an offer based on his previous work with Lynn Henniger and Sons. He was the VP, and he had stopped being the VP to be selling Subways. So Lynn had helped him out, get him started, Lynn and Helen. And my parents got started with Subway, and we've been on this ride since then. And so bringing it back to 2007, I became a manager, and I really started to have to learn things on my own. It's always really been kind of on my own, teach myself what works, what doesn't work, how to set goals. It's really been, I've had been self-directed this majority of the time. And the learning I get is either from trial and error, messing up, typically, or from books, YouTube eventually. And and so we opened that 3rd store, and then a couple years later, my dad was stopping in at a Subway near one of his mills he would stop at Mifflinburg, and he ended up chatting up the owner, and they were looking to sell, and we ended up buying a store in Mifflinburg. And then I think it was 2012, 13 maybe, I think we opened a store in Langhans. There was a push to get more Subways opened up, and we didn't want someone else coming into our territory. And so of the valley. And so we were going to do two locations, one of the drive-through in Millersburg and one here in Langhans. And it didn't really work out for Millersburg. Never really did. And we put on Langhans. And so over a 1994, 2012, it's like that's a long time. 16, 18 years. Wow. So 18 years went by. We had 5 stores. Um, and my brother and I were in it. I was still running Halifax until Langhans opened up. And then I was splitting my time between those. We bought Mifflinburg. I would spend some time up in Mifflinburg. I didn't know how to manage my time really well, so sometimes I would just want to show up on time. Timeliness was not my big thing, but anyways. So learning, there's a lot I had to learn in those first 18 years, being around my family and doing all that, and then like it's really never took off. I didn't understand why. Like the things I did in Halifax weren't working in Langhans. It was like you just work hard and you just are there all the time and you just build a customer base. So even in Langhans, I was doing that. We had a great store. Like it ran great. I was very happy with that store for a long time. But our sales never like took off. They never got better, and there's a lot of unknowns about that. But we were losing money all the time, and I didn't understand the financials. We didn't have good P&L reporting and financial reporting for a good 20 years. First 20 years of the business probably weren't the best. And I can tell I can't go back and look at what those numbers were. Pre-2013, 2014. I don't think we don't have anything other than like a tax return or whatever we could look up. So not really good. So then 2016 came around. My brother was in the business as well, and he wanted to make more money, and he had been looking in online for Subways for sale, and found one in Frackville or Minersville. I think it was Minersville first, and that became the store that my brother and I, Ryan, got into the business of Subway. That's when we finally became franchisees. Not with Mifflinburg or not with Langhans, which would have made sense since we had both stated that we wanted to be part of the business. We didn't really get included in the business until we pushed harder and harder to get into it. So we got into Minersville, did our training, which was interesting. The way Subway trained at the franchisor level was go out to local subways. A local subway, you would get assigned. You'd work like 40 hours in store, and then you'd also have classroom training. And this was a really interesting thing for me to reflect on, that experience, because I would roll in and be like, all right, and we were the 3 of us that were there for the training. It was just my brother, myself, and this guy, Greg. We all had previous Subway experience. So my brother and I both had a ton of Subway experience. And then Greg, he had worked in Subway 20 years ago prior to that. And he had worked with Fred DeLuca, the founder of Subway, down in Mexico, building out Subways in that area. And so he had passed the threshold of like he hadn't been in Subway for 20 years, and so he just had to take the franchisee training course over again. So here we were, super experienced Subway people, come into a store, and we're just like making it better. but there wasn't really much that franchisee could teach us. She was just taking the courses because Subway was paying her to do it, and they were paying terribly cheap to do it. So it was like peanuts for what she had to do. I mean, granted, she had free labor most of the year because we were there, but it was a free for all for in-store training. So, and you really saw the overbuilding, especially in Connecticut, in that home area for Subway. You really saw like, oh, here's a Subway, and here's one across the parking lot, and here's one in the Walmart across the other parking lot. And it's just like, well, this doesn't make any sense. No wonder all these Subways are struggling. They just overdid it. And so we did that. We did our Subway training. Then we got into just growing like crazy. And so 2016, it was like October 2016, we bought Monersville. And then in 2017, we added a Frackville location. We added St. Clair and a Pottsville Mall, which was a terrible store, but we had to buy it, part of the deal. And then it was 2018, and then we took on Lewisburg, and then we took on Mifflintown and Lewistown, and then we sat still for a little bit. And all these other stores. So Mifflinburg was the only one that it was an hour away from our base operations and where we lived. And so the Frackville, Monersville, St. Clair, Pottsville Mall, those were in Schuylkill County. Those were all an hour away from where we operated. The Lewisburg, the Mifflintown, Lewistown locations were all an hour and a half away from where we operated. And so it was like, whoa, it was a real shock to the system how we do things. And then 2020 came, and by that point I got married. I had moved down to the Harrisburg area, and the pandemic came, and Subways just started popping off. They were like, I'm out. And so there was abandoned stores, and so we took over our first one at Summerhill Plaza, which has turned out to be a good store. Very proud of it. But we've been growing ever since then. We picked up 2 other abandoned locations in Langhans and Susquehanna Township at the Blue Mountain Commons. And then we picked up another store. We bought a store in Hummelstown. We bought a store by the Cedar Cliff. And we bought 2 stores in Carlisle in 2023. And so from 2016 to 2023, we went from 5 locations beginning in 2016 to the end of 2013. And then also in 2023, beginning 2023, I added 2 stores myself to my own company at State College, where I had previously worked, but not at those locations necessarily. Although the one was occasionally. So from 2016, 2013, 2023, it was just a blitz of adding locations and just okay. And so 7 years, and we added 14 locations, like roughly 2 a year, but actually it was 16 locations. We ended up closing Langhans and the Pottsville Mall. So that was a lot, real fast, and we did not know what we were doing. And Subway wasn't like, oh, this is how you do it. This is the structure. This is the things you gotta watch out for. Because during that, especially that Harrisburg time frame, we had started off doing it with our BD territory. And then Subway changed their process that it became SMOs. Subway was buying out BD territories. And so we lost our connection, our local connection to what do we do? What are we doing? How do we do this? And we just had to just left even more isolated and alone in a time of so much turmoil, pandemic, and that was a lot. And so that's where I'm at today. We still have all those locations currently. Looking at exploring options of downsizing and restructuring and all those things, but in the same breath, looking at other opportunities, subways. Um, so go figure. You know, we have a I don't want to say an addiction, but it's an entrepreneurial addiction. Is we can always figure it out. We can always do more, even when we can't. And so, one of the things I've been leaning into is something I've always thought about, is training and teaching and the coaching aspects of what we do, and that's where this channel is going to be primarily be focusing on, is that aspect: training, coaching, teaching, and how those things interact with all the things that I've learned, my work history, and books I'm reading. Either I'm going to be covering some books I'm currently reading, or I'm going to be revisiting some old books that I used to listen to, Audible and everything, or would read, and how those are playing and affecting how I think and how I'm approaching different problems and projects. And so this was a long talk. They probably won't all be this long. There'll be a mix of shorter ones and longer ones, just depending on the mood. I just wanted to kind of get this all out there today. And so if this interests you in any kind of way, you want to see this little, how this plays out and how, what can you learn from me? Okay. What can you arrive at my location? What you can learn from me and what I can help you learn from my mistakes and my experiences. Um, Feel free to subscribe, like, leave a comment. We'll try to interact and see where this takes us. So, thanks for listening. If you've listened this far, I appreciate you, and have a great day.